I've got to tell you about this new clothing line called Urban 71, ERBN, for the ladies and the gents. You got to check them out on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Whatever city, town, or state you're from, it's you, it's me, it's us. It's a movement. Urban71.com or www.erbn71.com. I'm talking hoodies, sweatshirts, t-shirts, jogging sets for the ladies, for the gents. Come on, y'all. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Pure fire, baby. Stay grounded, stay fresh, stay Urban 71. Hey everyone, this is Preezy from the Listen Up, Listen In podcast. Go check me out. But you gotta check out the Nathaniel Noble Jr. podcast at www.mrnoblepodcast.com. That's www.mrnoblepodcast.com. What's the podcast about? Well, let me break it down for you. He talks about life because it happens to everyone, with great guests and indie artists, Q&A sessions, along with positive vibes, talking to everyday people about life's journey and to connect hearts and souls of the common woman and man. Whether it's education, motivation, determination, and letting out some frustration, you gotta check out the Nathaniel Noble Jr. podcast. Do you have a story to share? Well, sign up to be a guest. He's on all the podcast platforms. That's the Nathaniel Noble Jr. podcast. Let's get it. Hey everybody, before I even get started, all praises due to Jehovah God and Jesus Christ every day. Amen. Now let's start the show.
Tanya, you ready?
Listen up, listen in. 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 Thanks for tuning in. Let's have a conversation. Talking worldwide, it don't matter your location. What you going through and the topic may have relation. Let's get some motivation. Let's swap out education. Every Friday we heal, laugh, improve, and grow. Put some nutrients in your mind, give you food for the soul. I know you pumped and preparing for your weekend and low. Might as well join the discussion and tune into the show. Listen up, listen in. Listen up, listen in. Listen up, listen in. Listen up, listen in. Listen up, listen in.
Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Listen Up, Listen In podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. And I want to give a shout out to all my peoples that's out there listening. But a shout out to God. Thank you, God, Jehovah, and Jesus Christ every day. Amen. And, I got a special guest today. Y'all know how I do with my special guests. They are special. But let me tell you a little bit about this beautiful young lady that I'm about to introduce. From a young age, she knew something was missing from the books she read. Even today, so many of the books that reach readers lack strong women and femme-presenting characters or positive representation for the queer and disabled communities. Her writing emphasizes characters, identities, and experiences she missed out on in her youth. She is queer and neurodivergent and has a chronic illness caused by long COVID. She lives in Boston, MA, with her wife, Jasmine. She enjoys gardening, painting, and finding new science fiction or fantasy books to enjoy. She's a creator of the Underground Bookshelf, and this project provides free short stories and literally resources every week with the intention of making diverse stories more accessible to everyone. Sounds good? Sounds good to me. So without further ado, let's all give a round of applause for Miss Laura-Browne-Lambert. Hey, Laura, how you doing?
Hi, Preezy. Good. How are you?
I can't complain, just taking it easy one day at a time, but I'm very happy that you are here on Listen Up, Listen In podcast. And I always like to ask my guests, how's your day going so far?
It's good. It's good. I'm chilling here in my closet, getting the quietest room in the house.
That's what's up.
Okay,
That's
I live in a 3-story building, and I'm right up at the top, so the heat is rising.
The heat is on. Yes, yes. All right, I ain't gonna keep you in there too long now. Um, I know it's hot. But I'm glad you're in an area that's nice and quiet. You sound so, the volume is excellent. So maybe I should tell all my guests, yo, when we do these interviews, get your butt in the closet. You know what I'm saying? Because I need it to be nice, crisp, and clear like Laura. So, I'm glad you're having a wonderful day. And now that I read your bio, you know, I read your beautiful bio, but only you can tell your story. So let my audience know who is Laura Brown Lambert, what you do, how you got started, all that good stuff.
It's a big question. But as you said, my name is Laura. I'm born and raised in Massachusetts. I started writing back when I was a kid. And I think some of it came from, just the magic of storytelling and immersing yourself in characters, in mythology, in just the magic of a really good plot. But I never really saw myself in those books, or when I did, I was imagining myself as characters that weren't like me, right? And so writing became a way to insert myself into a story that didn't include me. And I didn't realize that's what I was doing when I was a kid, but when I look back, that's what was happening. And so I was lucky enough that I had parents who encouraged me to write. If I was like, I got nothing to do, they'd say, well, where is your pen? Where is your paper? Go write something down. So I was very lucky like that. But I think the thing about, I think one of the things that I didn't realize, or I didn't understand that I was internalizing as a kid, was that I didn't see people around me, like even in my own family, right? I was always surrounded by people who had a different experience from me. And the same was and so if I wasn't seeing people like me at home, at school, at work, among my friends, then where would I look? I would look to art. And for me, because I like to read, I would look to literature. So I'd keep reading and keep reading, looking for that next story that I could find some little kernel of me inside of. And it was always hard to find. It was always taking a little kernel from this book and a little kernel from this book and trying to mash it together in my head to make sense of who I was. And I grew up with this feeling that because I didn't see myself in the people around me, because I didn't see myself in the literature around me, the art around me, the media around me, I started to feel like I didn't exist. Like I was an oops, I was a mistake. I wasn't a real person. Maybe I was an alien. And so I think that's one of the reasons that I got so attached to science fiction and fantasy, because there's all these fantastical characters that are really diverse within the universes that are created on the page. And that was something I could identify with. This otherness, this being this fantastical creature that was different from anybody outside of the page. And so I wrote a lot in my downtime, but I never really put it out there. And so I just left last year working in the nonprofit sector. And immediately my goal had been, well, I'll try to get some some health issues under control. I was having a lot of sensory processing issues in the job that I was doing. And so I thought, well, I'll take a little bit of time off so that I can deal with those things. And then I'll dive head first, get some of the books that I've been working on in my spare time, published, and I'll start really diving headfirst into this writing thing. And then I got COVID. And then it never really left. So it's taken a lot longer to really dive into this project. But I think I don't want to say one of the benefits, because there's a lot about the way the pandemic has affected us as a society that's been really negative. Like you mentioned, I had long COVID. I now have a functional neurological disorder that was triggered by COVID, and so I'm dealing with the repercussions of that, and I will be for a long time. But one of the things that it's done is give me new things to process about myself on the page, new ways of seeing the world. I was already engaged in the disability community as a neurodivergent person and through my work in the nonprofit sector, but having a functional neurological disorder and long COVID gives me a different lens into that community. And so when I try to look on the bright side, I tell myself it's just another lens through which I can connect via writing. But really, when we come down to the heart of it, writing for me, my goal, my vision with writing is to make sure that in my little way, the next generation of people like me don't feel like an alien, that they see themselves on the page and they see themselves in art, even if they don't see themselves at home or at school or at work.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. So let me ask you, you started writing at a young age, and who inspired you? Did anybody inspire you to, and like any authors or anybody that you knew that's like inspired you to like really do it? And how did you know what to choose when writing? When you first started, like, yeah, like how did you know, like, damn, I'm gonna write about this? How did you know?
I think on some level it's just something you feel. Like I mentioned, I really, my maybe first love when it comes to genres is science fiction and fantasy. And that started at a young age. I was reading, like my mom handed me classics like C.S. Lewis and folks like that when I was really young. And so some of the first literature that I was reading was in that genre. And I think one of the things that captured me by science fiction and fantasy was, firstly, that I could completely leave my current situation, whatever it was, and delve into another universe, and forget whatever problem it was that I was dealing with at the time. And then the other part, I think, like I said earlier, was that I could see myself in the strange creatures, the aliens and the centaurs, and all these creatures that might have been viewed as different within their little fantasy universe, but found a home in that universe. And that was something that I think I really craved, was finding sort of a home for people like me in the real. And if I couldn't find that in the real, then I could find that in fantasy type literature. And so I think that's kind of what triggered the inspiration to kind of live in those genres. I can't say that there was a specific author that I can recall that made me think, oh, I should write like them. But I did have people in my life saying, you know, you're pretty good at this. Why not keep doing it for fun or work towards it for work? Or I think one of the things for myself, sort of coaching that I gave myself, was that people kept telling me, oh, if you're trying to process a problem, why don't you journal about it? And I've never been good at journaling. I've tried 100 times to start a new journal, and there's always 1 or 2 pages that I write and then I tear them out and then I never touch it again. And I realized that's because I don't process my problems in that kind of way. I process them through stories. And so, as an example, the book that I released a couple weeks ago, The Wood, I wrote at the beginning of trying to process having long COVID and having this new level of feeling like an outsider and not understanding my body and what was happening to it and what that meant when I went outside my door and interacted in my community. Right. And so for me, at a very young age, just dealing with the world around me and trying to process what was happening to me or to people around me, I did through telling a story in my head, and eventually I learned to take it from my head and put it on paper.
Nice. I see that you were saying that a lot of the books, it lacks strong women and femme-presenting characters. What you mean by that?
I mean that a lot of the stories, particularly when I was growing up, either on television, in film, in books, tended to have protagonists who were male, cisgender, white, straight, sort of heteronormative, like your like white boy next door sort of character, which I'm not saying we shouldn't have characters like that, but nearly every book that I read, that was the protagonist. And so anyone who was different from that within that character's kind of hemisphere wasn't the person whose story was getting told. So I'll use an example, sort of a classic TV or film example that I think a lot of people will recognize, at least from my generation and the generation before. If we think about a character like Indiana Jones, he has women characters around him, but they're always in distress. He's always saving them. They're always like flouncy and confused, and they don't know what's happening, and they need a male protector. And they're not the hero of their own story, because we need Indiana Jones to be the hero of her story, right? And so a lot of characters or a lot of books and film and television that hits the mainstream tend to present their characters in this kind of way. They tend often to have a straight white male protagonist. Queer folks and people of color are often cast as the villains. And so like there's this whole history of queer coding villains, such that, we've come to sort of subconsciously associate queer people as bad even before our culture tells us so, because anyone who's coded as queer is often the villain, and so we see those traits as inherently evil, right? And so I think the way we code a lot of our characters in literature really matters. And like I said, when I was growing up, most of the protagonists I read were boys. And so I began identifying in my head as if well, if I want to be the hero, I have to be the boy, or I have to write a male character, or, you know, when I go out in the world, people are going to see me as weak because I'm not a boy. And I'm being told these things when I'm 5 years old in the books that I read, because that's something that exists sort of in the subconscious of our society. And it just, because it's mainstream in our society, it ends up in our mainstream literature. And we end up doing some subconscious messaging, even without realizing that we're doing it.
Right. Wow. That was deep. That was deep. So definitely need to see a lot more positive and positive things when it comes to women. That is for sure. So your characters and your identities and stuff, you made them all up in your head, or did you get ideas from other books or even television? How you come up with your characters and stuff like that? Is it for the things that you probably uh went through in life, or it just pops up? Because I know writers always write. Writers always think. They see something in the street, they'll jot it down. Ah, that's a good idea. How you get your ideas to write The Wood?
Well, when writing The Wood specifically, I would say The Wood got triggered in a couple of ways. First, I had recently read a book that was, I think it was called The Year of the Witching, or something like that. And so I had like spooky things sort of on the brain. And then I was getting hit by all of these feelings that I was trying to process as I was internalizing a new disability, right? When I got long COVID, my mobility got really impacted. It was affecting my lungs, it was affecting my arms, it was affecting my legs, it was affecting my brain and how well I was able to think and talk and commune with other people. It was affecting my energy levels. Could I do anything today? Was I gonna have to stay in bed today? My body started doing things that it hadn't ever done before. Like, I was going from having moments of strength to moments of weakness when my legs would give out, or I have tremors in my muscles now that kind of come and go, and all of this happens sort of without a whole lot of warning. And so when I was writing The Wood, I was trying to process what it is to have your body go through a drastic change, that you then have to relearn how to interact with yourself. You know, how do you, if your body changes in a way that it kind of feels unrecognizable to you, how do you regain ownership over your body? How do you regain value for yourself, self-worth, self-love, self-acceptance? How does it change your identity? You know, I had already identified as queer. I had already identified as neurodivergent. But now I had this other piece of the puzzle that I had to figure out. How does this change my identity? Because it's going to change how people out in the world interact with me. It's going to change how I interact with them. It's going to change whether or not I can get into certain buildings, if I can go to certain events. It's going to change what happens if I go dancing with friends and I can't get in because the lip is just too big and I'm using a wheelchair today and I just can't get in, or people at the door just stare at me while I struggle to try to join the fun. All of these, I was kind of wrestling with all of these feelings about identity and, who I am, because I was always the caregiver. I was always the one going, oh, my wife needs this. I can do that for her. I can't fix her problems at work, but I can make sure she eats a nice dinner tonight. Or I can make sure that, I can make sure this happens for her. And at least she won't have to worry about this thing, right? And so I had attached that kind of caregiving to a piece of my identity. And now I need a lot of help with things that I didn't need help with before. And so the wood was kind of a mashup between just having fun, spooky things on the brain and trying to process all of these things that were happening in my body and happening in the world around me when I left my house. And so, when I'm talking to people about this book, I tell people that it's about self-acceptance and accessibility and identity and found family, which are all themes that relate a lot to the queer community and the disabled community.
Wow. So having COVID really messed you up, huh? And you was mentioning sometimes you saying sometimes you have to be in a wheelchair?
Sometimes I use a wheelchair, sometimes I use a cane. I just got a walker for when I'm up on the third floor. My house is really inaccessible, and we just moved our things down to the second floor so that I don't have to do stairs as much. But yeah, depending on the day and depending on the situation that I'm in, I might use a wheelchair, I might use a cane. If I'm just hanging out at home, I might not use anything. But for example, last weekend we marched in the Pride Parade in Boston, and we brought my wheelchair to that because I wasn't going to be able to stand for, I don't know, what was it, like 8 hours or something, because we were there to set up, we were marching in the parade, and my wife was coordinating, so I was there helping her like blow up balloons and set up the banners and that sort of stuff. So it was a long day, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to do all of these things and march without sitting down. So yeah, depending on the day, I use different devices. It all just depends on how I'm feeling and how much exertion is going to come with the activity that we're doing.
Do you feel that having this chronic illness sets you back a lot on, you would be able to do a whole lot of other things? Do you think that it kind of sets you back a little bit from what you really want to do? Like, damn, if I didn't have this or I didn't have the strength to do this, I would be here, I'll be doing this or that. Is it a setback?
I think it is. It's hard to say because I never had the, I didn't have the length of time without it with
Right.
the plan that I had, so, who knows what might have happened. It does feel like a setback some days though, because, there are days when my body just doesn't have the energy to do things. I might not have the mental energy to write. I might not even have the mental energy to read the next thing that I'm going to talk about for Underground Bookshelf. Energy is a really big setback, I think, for me. I think there have been, yeah, I guess the short answer is, yeah, I think there have been setbacks. I think I'm also really lucky in that I do have people around me who are willing to help, but they can't write the stories for me. And they can't, reach out to publishers for me, and they can't do, all those sort of, the everyday work that comes with writing. They can't do that for me, but they have been helping with other things. I tabled at the Trans Resistance Festival. So Boston has the Trans Resistance March and Festival organized by Trans Resistance Massachusetts. And I hosted a table at their festival to talk about Underground Bookshelf as well as The Wood. And my brother-in-law and my wife both helped me with setting up the booth, because I couldn't physically set the booth up on my own, and I couldn't go around my house and collect all the supplies that we needed and cart things around. So they helped with a lot of that physical legwork, and my wife helped out with manning the booth when we had the big rush of people. So I'm lucky that I have people in my life who can help me make certain things more accessible and more doable just by being present and doing some of the legwork that I can't do. But that doesn't mean that there haven't been setbacks when, I just physically can't go through the motions of writing today.
That's good that you have the support, because that means a lot when you have support of others to be there and help you out. So,
Absolutely.
mentally and physically. So, when did you start the underground bookshelf? How did you come up with that idea? Like, hey, this is what I want to do. With helping people, the free stories, free short stories. When that started? Like, when did you come up? When did you decide to do?
Yeah, it went live in February, so it's still pretty new.
Okay.
But it came out of conversations with my wife. She's a really, really good brainstormer, and I'm really good at executing her brilliant ideas.
That's
So
cool.
she and I were just spitballing, how do I, if my career goal is to reach readers who don't see themselves in the literature that they read and the media that they consume, then what is the best way of going about doing this? And my goal had always been to write stories, but writing books isn't the only way to do that, and it's also not the only way to reach people, especially because books have a paywall. It's hard to give away all of your books, right? But what I could do, because we were talking a lot about the book bans that have been going on the last several years, and I mean, we've been banning books for generations. Don't get me wrong, this is nothing new. But the more we have diverse authors trying to get their stories out there, the more we're getting pushback.
Right.
And so in my conversations with my wife, we were talking a lot about that, and how do we reach readers if books are getting banned? Like, I'm not going to say that, I can't tell you that the books I write are ever going to become well known enough that people are going to bother to ban them. Maybe they will, and if they ban them, I'll wear that as a badge of honor. But if people can't find stories that they see themselves in because of book bans, or other inaccessibilities, whether that's paywalls or whatever reason, how can we reach people? How can we make sure that people feel seen no matter what? If you're 15 years old, you might not be able to go down to the local bookshop and buy something. But on Underground Bookshelf, there is no paywall. There will never be a paywall. We do have a Patreon page so that people can support the project, but Underground Bookshelf is intended to be a free resource, because if you can't see yourself anywhere else, my hope is that this can be a place you can see yourself. She came up with the title. I'll say I brought her a list of like 10 potential titles for the project. And she was like, this one's okay. Maybe this one. And then she threw out Underground Bookshelf like later that night. And I sat with it and I was like, no, that's genius.
Wow.
That's what it is.
Nice.
It says exactly what we're doing. You know, we're bringing stories to people no matter what. And so right now I'm the main writer featured there, but I really hope to see this project become a little bit more of a community platform. So I am accepting submissions from pretty much any genre. So if there's anyone out there listening who likes to write, it's me on the other side of the portal. Just shoot me an email through the website. As you can probably tell by my voice, I'm not an intimidating person at all. Just reach out to me. Because I really think that the more voices we have on the platform, the better the diversity in the platform will be. And if we have more diversity on the platform, then we have a better chance of having, that little kernel of a story that reaches that person who really needs it that day.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's true. It's true. So The Wood is the only book that you have out right now. Am I correct?
It is the only book I have out right now. There are some others that I'm working on, but I'm not quite ready to plug them yet. The Wood is on Amazon, though, and it is there as an ebook and as the paperback.
Nice, nice. So, what's the future for Miss Laura Brown? Word. What is the future? What are your future plans? You got the wood out. Again, you said you're working on some more books. I know you're gonna have a whole lot more. You're gonna have like Wood 2, Wood 4, Wood 7. I know you're gonna do your thing. And you got the underground bookshelf. So, but before you even answer that question, I just skipped this whole thing. I forgot. You said that you love gardening and painting and finding new science fiction or fantasy books to enjoy. When do you have the time for gardening, painting, and all those other things? When you have the time for that?
I don't know if I have the answer to that question. It just, it happens. So painting lately painting has become a little bit part of the work. And so it's been a little bit natural to create some space for it because, when I was tabling at the, Trans Resistance Festival a couple of weeks ago, I had made up some acrylic paint pour canvases, that I sold just as a way to kind of support the project a little bit. And also the cover art for The Wood, is my own acrylic painting. So that is original artwork. And so painting, I've kind of been pushing myself to do a bit more of so that I can get it included in the book. And then gardening, I'll be honest, since I got COVID, I haven't done a ton of gardening. And so right now we're kind of in the process. My wife has got, pallets in the back that she's been pulling apart, and she's going to build them into kind of a raised garden bed so that I have, so that it's a little bit more accessible for me to do some gardening this summer. We are rather late in the game for Massachusetts, but I think we'll get it done anyway, and we'll grow whatever we can. But it's always gardening, particularly vegetable gardening, has always been an important pastime for me, just because I grew up vegetable gardening with my family, and so it makes me feel close to family to be able to continue gardening on our little plot behind our house. And so sometimes you just got to create a little bit of time even where there isn't any. Yeah, gardening is one of the things that brings me a bit of peace. So if I'm feeling really stressed out, I'll tell myself, well, it's probably time to go water.
Right.
And that usually makes me feel a little bit better.
That's cool. Yeah, 'cause you got you're doing what you love, and that's important to always do what you love. But then you got your other little hobby, which is painting and gardening and stuff like that. And so you want to keep that because you keeping yourself busy all over. You bouncing, bouncing. So as long as you're not draining yourself now, Laura,
Well,
as long as you're not overdoing it.
that has been the trick that I have yet to quite figure out. I'm very good at overdoing it, and I'm not very good at reading my body's signals. And my wife is much better at reading my body's signals. Unfortunately, she and I are not going to be next to each other all day, every day, because, she has a real job. But I am learning. I'm relearning about my body, and I'm trying to
Right.
practice keying into the signals that it's sending me. And so hopefully over time I get better at it.
You will. You will. You got this. You got this. You know. So, and you got people that's gonna make sure you got this. You know what I mean? It's always good to have someone in your life that is pushing you and keeping you on your toes, even when you start feeling like, I don't feel like doing it. Got that person that says, nope, get your butt up. Come on, let's go. So that means a lot. It really does. So kudos to you with that. And I can't wait to read your book, The Wood. I cannot wait. Thank you so much for sending it. I am going to be putting it. Are you on Facebook?
I am on Facebook. So I'm on Facebook at Underground Bookshelf. I'm also on TikTok and Instagram at underground.bookshelf. And you mentioned earlier what's coming up in the future. I'm currently working on setting up a YouTube channel for Underground Bookshelf.
Nice.
So that's the project I'm currently trying to get sorted right now. The first book we're gonna do some kind of like deep dives into specific banned books or books that celebrate diversity, as well as like talk about book bans and the history of gatekeeping in publishing and things like that. But the first book we'll do a deep dive on is All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. So that is the project I'm currently working on. It's getting that up and running.
Nice. Very nice. Yes, so kudos to you, man. I'm so happy that you are doing your stuff, and I'm sorry that you had to experience COVID. I lost my mom with COVID 2020, April 15,
Sorry.
2020. So, yeah, but Laura, I'm glad you were able to be here. You know what I mean? And I'm sorry that, you do suffer from, having COVID, but I'm very happy that you're here. And you just keep fighting. And hey, listen, you're strong. You're doing your thing. You're writing the books. You got future books. You got this underground bookshelf organization. You're doing your thing, and you got it going on. And I'm proud of you. And you didn't let this illness take over you, And you just got to keep taking care of yourself. I know you're gonna have your. Somebody told me today I had an interview. Miss Michelle DeWitt, DeWitt, Michelle DeWitt stated, never say that you're having a bad day, because she got this from another man. He has a talk show. I think he was a pastor. And he said, uh, never say that you're having a bad day. Just say you're having a bad moment. Because I have a problem with that. I'm like, when I start thinking about my mom and I start crying, I'm like, oh man, today's not a good day. But she said, never say you're having a bad day. Just having a bad moment. Don't ruin the whole day. So that made sense to me, because later on, something might make me happy, or I do something that's funny. So I don't want to say that anymore. And what I want to say to you is, I know you're going through stuff, but you keep going. And some days might be harder than others. And just think of it, just at that particular time, it's just a bad moment. And you just keep going on. You know what I mean? You keep going on, Laura, because you're doing good. Really are. And
Thank you.
I want you to tell my audience one more time, where can we find you? Just in case, they weren't paying attention. They better be paying attention. But because that's why it's called Listen Up, Listen In. So tell my audience one more time, where could we find you, and how can we get this book and find more about your organization?
Sure. So you can find the book, The Wood, on Amazon. I did test it out this morning to make sure if you did like just a general search that it would come up. And it does if you search The Wood, or if you search my name, Laura-browne-lambert, it will come up. It's available in ebook and in paperback forms. You can find Underground Bookshelf at underground-bookshelf.com. You can find Underground Bookshelf on Facebook at Underground Bookshelf. You can find it on TikTok and Instagram at underground.bookshelf. And we are also on Patreon if you would like to support the project. It's $3 a month, and our patrons get an extra short story every month, just as a little thank you for supporting the project. So on Patreon, it's patreon.com/undergroundbookshelf. And our YouTube channel is forthcoming. So if you keep an eye on the website and on our socials, more details about that will come soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Laura. And y'all got that information. Check it out. I got the book. I'm going to read it. I know I'm going to love it. And anything I don't understand, I'm going to text her. And I'm going to be like, yo, Laura, on page 32, the way I said. So look out for that, Laura, because if it's something I get lost in, I'm texting you. I'll let you know. You got to help me out. Yeah, so everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to Listen Up, Listen In podcast. And like I always say to everybody, live, laugh, love. Love you first, because you can't love anyone or anything unless you love yourself. Stay healthy, stay focused, keep God first in your life, and hug and squeeze your family members and your pets, because they family too. Just a little bit tighter. Love you, Mommy and Daddy, forever. And Miss Laura, keep up the good work. Thank you so much for being on Listen Up, Listen In podcast. And you're welcome to come back anytime.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Take care.
You too.
Oh, thank you.
That concludes this episode of Listen Up, Listen In with your host, Preezy. Hey, yo, Preezy, tell them how to keep in touch, baby.
Go to Instagram, Listen Up, Listen In 5687, and on Facebook, Listen Up, Listen In. You can also email me at listenuplisten5687@gmail.com. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, by following me on social media, you'll be able to see all the platforms my podcast is on. Wherever you consume my podcast, hit the subscribe button so you can be notified when a new episode is posted. Rate, review, and share this podcast.
Listen up, listen in.